Coming up on this episode of the Village Idiom.
Beer nuts are $2.50. Deer nuts are under $1.
That's very nice.
Village Idiom.
Hello and welcome to the Village Idiom.
We are a podcast that every single week we choose a popular saying and we take an admittedly shallow, we'll admit it.
It's shallow.
We hope that it's comedic. Once in a while it becomes interesting. And if we're really lucky, it's an educational dive into the meaning, the origin of said idiom. But honestly, we use it just to hang our otherwise directionless conversation on. My name is Jurassic Mark.
And I am skinniest.
Indeed. You're what? Skinniest?
I don't know about the skinniest, but definitely skinny. I think it's actually everyone else's fault that I'm so fat.
See, when you say, and I'm skinny, I don't think it's that you're fat. It's actually become
a thyroid condition.
It's actually just become your name that I don't associate it with weight when you say, and I'm skinny.
I've heard about this being able to choosing names that just own it, and then it loses all its power. And so it's skinny. You just take away all its meaning.
Why do you say that it's everyone else's fault though in the first place?
I'm a fan of pushing things onto other people. Is basically what I'm saying.
I walk into them. Blindly. I don't know why I walk into them blindly, because you should know, but that was your setup for today's idiom, which is...
Oh, that's great, Frank. Pass the buck. Just passing them. Everybody passing the buck.
Pass.The.Buck. That's great.
Yeah, it's a... In all honesty, it's everything is your own doing.
Of course.
You create, things the way they are. But there might be factors, and I don't know, maybe if the way you were raised, or maybe your dad consoled you with a big milkshake every time you fell or something.
I'll tell you this story.
Sure.
Speaking of the way you were raised.
The way I was raised?
No, not the way you were raised. But I remember once being... our parents usually had a babysitter. It was the same babysitter. Her name was Holly. She was fantastic. But I remember this one occasion where they left us with the next door neighbors. So I don't know why it was different that day. But we went over. It was daytime, not an overnight or anything like that. And they brought us sandwiches for lunch. Great. Took first bite, and me and my sisters both were just trying not to spit it out. We're if nothing, we're polite. We have manners. And so swallowed it. Look at each other. Look at the sandwich. Peanut butter sandwiches on white bread. No big deal. If you imagine how much peanut butter you'd put on it.
Okay.
Now, double that.
Okay.
Which, all right, it's peanut butter.
That's a big gob.
Now, equal to, but doubled again, in butter.
What?
Yeah, you could
butter,
see,
peanut butter?
But plain butter, more plain butter than peanut butter.
Interesting.
Yeah, so I would say a 1/4 inch thick of butter.
Oh, wow.
And then to top this off, it was an obese family, and it was just ding.
It's when you use a cheese cutter to take off your butter. What is it? A pat of butter?
We beatboxing there.
Brought the pat of butter. The butter pad.
Yes.
Using a cheese slicer instead of getting a little bit with your knife, just cutting off slabs.
No, you couldn't get this thick of butter with a cheese slicer. You would need a knife, 1/4 inch.
That's awesome. I have had when you're eating cream cheese, because I don't know, it just doesn't seem the same. You can just slather on cream cheese on a bagel, and so unless you can actually see your teeth in the bite. I'll
actually order double the cream cheese on a bagel.
Somehow it's different.
Yeah, it's different. I would like to pass the buck, though, and can pass the buck on the temperature of the studio today.
There's a heat dome in this room.
There is no... usually we'll turn off the air conditioning to record.
Just for
the sound
save
reasons.
The noise problems.
I don't think it's been on at all today. We're sweating, and so I'm passing the buck on to, I don't know what, the landlord?
The guy who runs this place. You think it's him?
The building manager.
Well, I did come across this where we talk about,
passing the buck,
segueing into workplaces and phrases. Kind of.
You're just rapping today. Workplaces and phrases and pat of butter.
Pat of butter. I say pad, you say butter. Pad.
Butter.
Okay.
That was the Fat Boys and their songs.
So, don't have to comment particularly on them. It's just
Okay,
interesting phrases.
I'll stay quiet.
Okay. Oh, it'd be great if you did comment.
Oh.
But you don't have to you feel like you have to do like a full riff on one.
Okay, got it.
Okay. So pass the buck.
Yeah.
Okay. Running amok. So they're like athletic phrases.
You're still rhyming.
Running amok, pass the buck.
What did you say? What was the rhyme just a minute ago?
I don't know. Pat of butter.
No, before that. Shoot. I could have.
Here we go.
Did you hear that?
No.
That's the air conditioning.
Is it kicking
when
in?
It comes on.
It really? It's
not grounded or something.
Suck all the energy out of the building. So yeah, they're athletic. You pass the buck.
Pass the buck and run amok.
You run amok. You jump to conclusions.
Oh, I see where you're going with this.
Okay. You point fingers.
Okay. Little less athletic.
Little less. Okay. Climbing the walls
Interesting.
and diddly squats. I had to drag out that last one a bit.
That's funny.
So it's a leg workout.
I was trying to
Go skip leg day.
I was trying to anticipate it, and I was trying to go like skip to the loo. Like, what's the next one? Skip.
When it comes time to
Toss your lunch.
Yeah, sure. Your cookies, lunch, yeah. These are good work phrase. Yeah, so
Well-
it involves some athletic thing in order to slough off work. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, so leg day was squats. So it was diddly
Diddly
squats.
squats.
Yeah, don't read too far into it. Yeah, so it's just a little interesting athletic buck passing.
Buck passing. Do you know the difference between, speaking of bucks, do you know the difference between beer nuts and deer nuts?
Beer nuts like at a bar, deer nuts as in
Beer nuts
Okay.
are $2.50. Deer nuts are under $1.
That's very nice. Ew.
That's all I got. Okay, good night, everybody.
Yeah, I'd heard it in the form of. Do you know what the cheapest form of meat is? Yeah, it is deer testicles.
Deer nuts?
Deer testicles. Yeah,
Is this a real thing?
Yeah, because they're under $1.
Oh, okay.
So that's the.
I'm the one that made the joke and still was like, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's the variation that I've heard on
Oh, I see.
on this thing.
Got it.
Yeah, either way. Yeah, well, that phrase "buck" is like it has multiple meanings. Like a buck is $1.
A buck is $1.
It's kicking,
Bucking bronco.
like a horse. Yeah.
Buck's a system.
Yeah.
Buckle up. That's different.
Buck Rogers.
Buckaroo. No, yeah, I think we hit them all.
Buccaneer.
Buccaneer.
Yeah, that's
how much?
That's a cheap pirate. Yeah, there's got to be some more in there. Anyways. Yeah. Well, it's
Why was the pirate wearing a patch on his ear? Because he was getting a buccaneer? I don't know.
there's something there.
There's something there.
Anyway, it's been a hot, fast, furious summer.
It's been a hard day's night.
Yep. We're ready to shift the blame onto
did-
someone else.
Did, speaking of buck as in the deer, did a couple of road trips today, not today, this summer, where I would have expected to see wildlife. And nothing. I'm like, must have something to do with COVID or inflation. But you drive from here to Alberta, you're going to see wildlife.
Okay, so I've recently driven across Canada as part of my experience. The most wildlife I saw was between here and Alberta.
Interesting.
I kid you not. I saw a moose.
Oh, a moose.
Two
So you
bear.
usually got to go. What?
Two bear on different occasions. Like not even like the same family of bear. Two separate bear sightings.
Wow.
Saw an emu in an emu farm. So
Okay, so
not a
that
naturally
one was
occurring
behind a
emu.
fence. Okay.
But apparently, yeah, we've talked about the camels that were brought in. I didn't see a camel, but the camels were brought in to BC.
Oh, yeah.
But
they're not still wild anywhere.
Well, they were let go, and we don't know where they went. I'm assuming the cougars got them. 'Cause-
Yeah.
Or the
It's a tasty snack for.
the moose. Yeah. So and of course deer. Yeah, you're gonna see.
Yeah,
You're gonna see.
you should see plenty of deer.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But I did not. Nary a deer.
well, you got to. So go.
But I was camping last week, as were you, and I didn't see it, but several of our mutual friends saw a bear in the creek. A little mama bear with two cubs.
Yep. doing her thing.
Yeah, I wish I'd seen that.
I was just reading today because there was a bear that had acclimated in golden ears to being able to retrieve people's backpacks from bear caching, like from caches. Like, so, like how they string them up with these wire systems into the tree, but the bear evolved. The bear figured it out how to do it. And they
killed. What, is he undoing knots in the...
However, he gets himself and swings over and shakes it loose and all the rest of it. And so he's eating these people's backpack lunches and meals, whatever, all these campers, and they killed him. And so you're like, oh, that's sad. And then it went into like over the past 5 years or whatever, how many bears they had to kill. It's over 500 something bears a year.
And yet they're
killed. It's like, oh, that one bear.
But they're still running amok. Like, there's a lot of bear.
Yeah.
Not like where we are. It's not dangerous going outside. You had a bear in your backyard, so it's that readily available.
Right.
I mean, that was one time out of however many years you lived there.
But it happened. So you're saying there's a chance.
It did happen. Yeah. So I'm going to give you a little game before we get into the origins, and this is the usual game, as I want to give you 3 options, and I've discovered that rather than elaborate descriptions in the options, because that takes away from the origin story in the first place, I'm keeping them short as I did last time I did this. So here's your 3 options of, unless you already know the origins. No. Here's your 3 options of the potential origin story of Pass.The.Buck.
Deer, money. It's going to be deer or money. A buck. Okay.
Well, you're close to 2 of them.
Oh, okay. See?
So 1, Old West poker dealers. I'm counting that as money. Number 2, Old West tailors. Number 3, Old West trappers. Pass.The.Buck.
Like Uncle Buck. Like a trapper. Passing a buck. I don't like it. I'm going to immediately scratch off a trapper.
Okay.
A poker dealer. I don't know if that's a thing. Unless you do like blackjack.
Pass me your money, Pass.The.Buck.
Oh, I see. Well, no, because people play independently at tables. They're not monitored. Unless you play like blackjack or some type of like baccarat type. What was the second one?
The second one was Old West tailors.
See, it's got no connection. And it makes me think that might be it. It's got to be A or B. And 50-50 says it's going to be the tailor.
50-50.
But I should have switched at the end because that gives me a statistical... The Monty Python. The Monty Python.
So you're going to switch to...
So I'm going to switch to A because statistically I'm better off.
But are you statistically better off to switch again?
Yeah, at the end when you come...
but like now again.
I don't think so. I don't know if it gets better.
Well, that's the wrong music. Let's get into... I'm so ill prepared today.
That's okay. It's hot in here, man.
You want to just skip to the end?
We're melting.
It is hot. Do you need a moist towelette?
I said some words. Where'd they go? Where'd they go? No one can know. I turned around and looked behind. Those words
It's Monty Hall, not Monty Python. I'm having a heat stroke in here.
You know, it's funny you say Monty Hall.
Monty Python. And like, doesn't sound like it makes sense. It's the Monty Hall.
What is Monty Hall?
He was the deal or no deal kind of guy, isn't he?
Oh,
because the thing comes, it comes down to 3 choices. You pick one. It's gonna be A, B, or C, and then so you choose. In this case, B, and then it's like, okay, it's not C. Would you like to choose? And it goes through all that mathematical thing that it's not 50-50 that it's one or the other.
Right.
You should switch at the end. It's actually better, so you have to choose A.
So here's what's interesting when you said Monty Hall, because there's a game show called Pass.The.Buck, old-timey game show.
Crazy.
And we're going to, when we trail off, we'll throw out a little snippet of the game show theme song. But as you said that, I'm like, did Monty Hall host Pass.The.Buck? It's like this made full circle. Hey, Google, who hosted the game show Pass.The.Buck? I think it's too early.
Yeah, it's not.
Definitely. Did you see that little message on our camera?
No.
Your device is too hot.
Oh, is it?
That's how warm it is in here.
Yeah, it's hot in here.
So
We'll be fast, camera. Don't die.
So passing the buck originated from a ritual practiced during
It's the tailor, right?
card games.
Oh, okay, good. See?
So card players,
Your odds go up.
they used to put a marker, also known as a buck, in front of the person who has the deal. So if you didn't have a designated dealer, to keep it fair, you would take turns dealing.
Yes, you don't have...
And you put a buck. You put a buck in front, a marker in front of the person who's dealing that round.
Yes,
and if they choose to not deal on the next round, they pass the buck. They don't want to take the responsibility.
It's the big blind, little blind, because the dealer keeps revolving around in poker,
Right.
so that no one can be cheating.
Right. So that's where pass the buck comes from, because if you couldn't trust yourself or you didn't want to be blamed, because the dealer has some responsibility to be fair. So
Yeah.
if you said I'm not dealing, you're passing the buck.
Interesting.
Yeah. So it does get much more interesting as you go into this.
It can't get less.
Sure, it could. Oh,
That's
it can't.
fair.
Could it get less?
Probably.
No, we've already reached a certain point. You can't take back that information.
If
If it's this interesting, we can't go backwards.
it's like caring less.
Unless I say, just kidding. So the reason it was called a buck, this part is guessed, but it seems to be from some reliable sources that back in old-timey poker days...
Was it made of a rabbit?
No. Why?
I may actually be having a stroke right now. It's so hot in here.
Because rabbits have buck teeth?
In my head, a male rabbit was a buck. Wow.
Wait, what is it?
The camera's having an aneurysm.
Maybe it is. I don't know.
I
I'm
don't
laughing
know
at you, but
either.
you might be right.
This is so stupid. Go on before I actually catch into
Okay,
burst into
so-
flames.
It was called a buck, the marker that moved around the table, because back then a lot of them had like buck knives and buckskin, this and that, and so it was usually like somebody's buck knife that just moved around
buck
the
knife.
table. Yeah,
Made from the bone?
No, I didn't-
An
I did-
antler?
is that why it's called a buck knife? Because
I
they have
don't know.
those antler handles.
Yeah.
It's totally why. I didn't look up the origins of buck knife.
Well, it's not an idiom.
Okay, so Pass the Buck is indeed an American slang and was first appearing in conversation and in print in the late 1800s. As we covered, buck is slang for dollar, has nothing to do with this, even though it comes back to poker, which is usually gambling for money. A buck is this marker, this poker that we would... so when you get into the origins of this, a lot of killings during poker comes up. And so they wanted to even
money.
out the dealer.
Yeah, that's how you pass around the dealer. But
Yeah.
those money things are like a root of evil. It's so the thing about the gambling, if I said, "Hey, you give me $100,"
Buck knife was made from a buck horn.
a horn or a
I
bone
actually
or something.
do have that written down
okay,
here.
cool. If you give me $100 and I say like, Mark, in 1 month. I know, I'm like, it's like dripping down. In 1 month, I will give you like $1,000.
Yeah. I mean, you got my attention again.
Like, I got you back?
Yeah.
Because I was approached by a guy for me to give him $100 and that he would in return give me $1,000. What tipped him off was that he came in this leather jacket. It looked sketchy. And I'm like, is this a Fonzie scheme?
There it is. Okay, this has nothing to do with today's idiom, but I just heard you want a little bit of trivia about Fonzie?
Sure.
So, just stumbled across this. Fonzie, famous for wearing his leather jacket. If you watch the first episode or two, he's wearing kind of a windbreaker jacket, no leather jacket.
What?
So,
A windbreaker?
yeah, it's like a white or tan,
In Uggs?
basically an Uggs windbreaker. And so the powers that be in network television back then did not want a leather jacket on TV. That is
Greaser?
too greaser, too bottom of the barrel. This is a hoodlum. This is a bad guy. Even though literally the storyline of Fonzie is a hoodlum. And so, but the writers loved the look so much, they made a deal with the network, said, well, it's a safety garment. He's a motorcycle rider. They're like, okay, when he's on or near his motorcycle, he can wear the leather jacket.
So they put, is that why they put it in his bedroom?
The motorcycle,
or his
motorcycle's in so many scenes so that he would wear the leather jacket.
Because doesn't he fix it in his kitchen or something?
I think so.
Oh man, that's
so
funny.
they just worked the motorcycle
every
into
time a
scene.
motorcycle was in.
Yeah,
he
I
could
think
wear
they
it
let
there.
up because later on I can picture him like hitting the jukebox in his leather jacket and there's
Right.
no motorbike, but that in the beginning. Anyway, that's the Fonzie scheme of the day. Earliest use in print comes from Weekly New Mexican, July 1865. Says this: they draw at the commissary and poker after they have passed the buck. But Mark Twain also used it in Roughing It in 1872. He says, I reckon I can't call that hand, auntie, and pass the buck. And that was used idiomatically. He wasn't playing poker at the time. And took off from there. California newspaper in 1902. This is definitely idiom. When the public or the council pass the buck up to me, I'm going to act. Here's my confession. When I gave you my 3 options in this game, I realized that I gave you options based on information we haven't talked about yet, and therefore the wrong idiom. So this idiom that we're talking about today, pass the buck, is a direct correlation to the idiom, which is the buck stops here.
Oh, okay.
What I didn't know is that the buck stops here. Where is it? Here
Is
it
it
is.
still related to the
Is President
the knife?
Harry Truman. That was his line. He made it famous. He had a plaque made for his desk. Now, rumor has it that somebody made the plaque for him and they had seen it on the warden's office in a prison. But Harry Truman said it, owned it. The buck stops here. Like, I take all responsibility for the country.
I love that
So-
your respect goes up when someone actually
Yeah.
takes the buck.
But my potential idiom origins, so poker is the real one.
Okay.
The Taylor one, I'm like, the buck stops here. I was thinking buckskin, you might hem it here.
Oh, I didn't think of that. That would have got me even
The
better.
Old West trappers might be trying to trap a buck, and the buck stops here. And so I'm realizing, as you were guessing, I'm like, 2 of mine don't make sense with the idiom we're actually talking about. But I did think it was interesting. Harry Truman took, the idiom pass the buck, and he's like, no, the buck
This is where the buck stops
here.
Well, I fantastically appreciate that, because that is actually a massive quality that I love, particularly in child rearing. When a kid says, "Oh, it wasn't me. I didn't do it," it's like that drives me more mental than the actual act of whatever they did.
Right.
And so I had an incident in my house, I don't know, a few years back. I won't throw any particular person under the bus, but they'll know exactly which one it is. And there was just like a stack of snack wrappers stuffed into the couch.
You're a snack wrapper.
So
You've been wrapping
butter,
pat of butter. I'm a snack wrapper.
like jamming like Cheez-It wrappers around like just the laziest possible thing ever. And it's like you did this. Wasn't me. It's like, okay, like I don't have video evidence of inside the house, but I know it was you. You know it was
You're the
you.
snack eater.
Yeah,
Ergo.
because this is them. But it was. I'm like, if you did it, which I'm 99% sure it was you. But outside of calling someone a liar directly to their face, it got to that. If they just go, yeah, I'm sorry, I won't do it again, or whatever. You're just like, okay, fine, and it's over. But if you make it into that was no, it was so and so. How do you know? How do you know it was me?
See, this is my kid's approach.
Then I'm like,
to get out of trouble.
Now you've just angered me.
I'm
going to talk about this on a podcast.
If I caught Beetlebat stuffing wrappers in the couch cushion, then I'm like, dude, like, look,
wasn't me. It's me and you here.
He wouldn't deny it. He wouldn't pass the buck. He'd be like, I wondered how many I could get in there before you'd notice. That's what he would say.
At least it's like, okay, well, just don't do it and clean it up.
Yeah,
and then it's over.
That when I've
as
hired,
opposed to passing the buck.
When I've hired multiple interns, and one. It's like, hey, how come you guys didn't do this? Oh, well, so-and-so was like, wish you hadn't said that.
Yeah. Just own it.
Yep, I was on that team. I should have.
Yep, whatever. It's like, yep, screwed that up. It's like, you're not going to come in with you're fired. It's going to be, just start out your business, try not to do it again, and we'll move on. We never talk about it. But
yeah. The buck stops here.
Passing the buck, not good.
So we are never going to cover the idiom. The buck stops here. We're going to include that in today's idiom because that's the extent of it. It's Harry
a
Truman.
twofer.
And they're too closely related. So pass the buck. Pass the buck. PTB.
Well, my goodness. I won't pass the buck. It is not your fault. It is mine with stupid stories. It is time to get into the end here.
All right, then. Well, Red Link is a game we like to play every single week. It's a game that takes a 2-part trivia-based question and requires a 2-part overlapping answer, overlapping by word, syllable, words, sentences, entire books, whatever overlaps. So, for example, last week, if you remember, we did Partners in Crime. And I feel like you almost got this one, but I'm not sure if you actually completed it. When 60s Western movie duo meets 90s hip-hop house party duo.
So immediately, I don't know if like the Lone Ranger
And Tonto.
Yeah, is that it?
Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid. And the house party movies were Kid and Play.
Oh man, no.
So the correct
I got
answer would
nothing.
be Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid and Play.
that's-
Not very many people are going to be super knowledgeable in old westerns.
No, that's above
and
my pay grade.
80s, 90s hip hop.
That would be like some bathroom googling right there.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, that's how you play Riddling.
Well, I've got a couple.
I got a couple.
Let me jump into this here for you. I'm going to shift responsibility to you, Winter Soldier. I'm going to shift responsibility to you, Winter Soldier.
Man, I don't know Marvel well enough. Is it Pass.The.Bucky Barnes?
Yes.
Bucky Barnes.
Good for you to pull that out of
you know
nowhere.
what I almost said.
Pull that out of the MCU.
So I don't know if I ever told you this. My dad wanted to name me Bucky.
You could have actually made that fly.
Yeah, because he just heard like this athlete being called on. Poor guy,
Bucky.
not athletic. I didn't become.
You're athletic.
What?
So you don't pursue it, but
Please,
but it's not like you're awkward.
and out to center court, Bucky Batten.
Bucky Batten. Oh my goodness.
Right?
I did Max McLaren.
Yeah, that's pretty great.
That's a good one.
Maximum McLaren.
He can do anything. He's got a whole PR campaign ahead of him.
All right, should I give you one?
Yeah.
All right. Shift the responsibility to someone else as you take the responsibility on yourself. Let me give you another one. Let me
Ooh,
say
I
it
think
again.
I got it.
Shift the responsibility
Wow.
to someone else as you
Wow.
take the responsibility on yourself.
That is Pass.The.Buck stops here.
That's right.
That's a good one. Wow, I really like that one.
I actually just realized
I wanna marry
I have
it.
2 more.
What?
Yeah, so assuming you don't take these, I got a bonus one for you.
Okay. I need to have 4 heart valves replaced, and I blame you. I need to have 4 heart valves replaced, and I blame you.
That's great, by the way. That's got to be quadruple bypass the buck.
Yes.
That's so good. Okay, here's a bonus one, and then I'll leave one more for everybody else out there.
Sure.
Bonus one is don't take responsibility for this cough syrup that tastes awful and it works.
One more time.
Don't take responsibility for this cough syrup that tastes awful and it works.
Illegitimate children, I hope you got that. That's past the Buckley's syrup.
That's right.
Buckley's cough syrup, or yeah,
Buckley's. Pass the Buckley's.
It tastes terrible, but it works.
And it works. I had to say and because that's their actual slogan.
Yeah, it's a good one.
All right.
Well, Illegitimate children, we would love to hear from you. I hope you were able to race ahead of us on some of these, but there's a one specially tailored for you. Reach out to us with a message with your answer on Instagram at the.village.idiom or email us thevillageidiompodcast@gmail.com, or whether it's the Facebooks, the YouTubes, or the Twitters at 3 Minutes Gone.
Beautiful. All right, here it is, ladies and gentlemen. To shift the responsibility over to the... Can I start over? Is that all right?
Sure.
We can just fix that in post.
That's too much effort.
To shift the responsibility over to this comic book, radio, and TV hero from the 25th century. One more time. To shift the responsibility over to this comic book, radio, and TV hero from the 25th century.
And that is 3 Minutes Gone.
You got that one right away, obviously.
It's good. There might be some folks who are not of our generation might need to Google's a bit, but that's okay.
You know, I think you need to be almost a generation older than us.
They would definitely.
Yeah.
You're the parents are
We've
jumping.
got
in
a
the
foot
front.
on both sides of it, I think.
Yes, we
The
do.
old-timey and the new.
We try. Well, it was fun putting together today's podcast. Hope you enjoyed it. We had fun putting it together. I'm Skinny,
I'm Jurassic Mark.
and these are the Village Idioms.
Feel it? Pass the buck with Bob Stewart.
Last 3 minutes gone.